to do, I'm very happy to introduce our speakers of today, and I would start with Raffaele Barbato, who is the project coordinator at the Urban Innovative Actions Permanent Secretariat in Lille, France, and he will give us an institutional welcome presentation. He will be followed by Dr. Pietro Lisei, who is the Urba Sofia Managing Director, as well as an Urban Innovative Action and Urbact expert. And he will give us an overview on post-industrial cities versus the emerging environmental and economic realities of nowadays. And then it will be followed by Mr. Valerio Manelfi and Luigi Iannitti, who are respectively the marketing director and head of innovation for Reset. And they will speak about the very interesting project called Soluzioni VerdiTaranto. And after them, Ms. Sabina Leopa from Urba Sofia, the deputy director of Urba Sofia, will present our own urban innovative action project, SPIRE, for Baia Mare. After this set of presentation, Banur Nazia from Utropian, the project manager for Utropian, will lead the discussion with our contribution and their reactions. And also Mr. Dorin Miklaus, the project manager for the SPIRE project in the municipality of Baia Mare, will be here answering our questions. So without any further ado, I'm very happy to welcome Raffaele Barbato, and I will leave the floor to him. Raffaele, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pietro. Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and the UIA Secretariat to participate in this webinar. I will use the 5 minutes that I have at my disposal to basically do three things. First of all, I will provide you with a short overview on UIA, what it is, and where we stand now. I will then show to you how important are the, let's say, green topic within the current portfolio of projects that we are supporting. And finally, I will share with you some reflection that we are currently doing about how to valorize the knowledge that those projects are generated. So the first slide, well, basically for those who are less familiar with UIA, just a brief reminder on the fact that UIA is a new initiative which was launched for the first time by the European Commission in 2015 for the current programming period, with two main strategic objectives. The first one, and I would say the predominant one, is to help cities experimenting on the ground new and unproven solution to the increasingly complex urban challenges that our cities and our communities are facing. In the meantime, on top of facilitating such experimentation on the local level, we also aim to, let's say, inspire the other cities, the one that won't be able to benefit from the direct funding of UIA, but we want to inspire them by sharing with them the knowledge and the lessons that will be learned through the UI projects. The main, we try to implement the first objective, which, as I said, is the predominant one, mainly through call for proposals. So we have been organized over the last 5 years yearly annual call for proposal, which were open to a limited number of topics. The topics that we cover as UIA are the one of the urban agenda of the European Union. So basically we cover the full spectrum of urban topics, from the more social one to the more green one, and those that are more related to mobility or to jobs in the local economies. So we do annual call for proposal, and what we offer to cities in order to experiment on the local level new and bold ideas is, first of all, 5 million euros. So we offer a maximum funding of 5 million euro ERDF, and then we have engineered and designed a number of mechanisms that we believe are particularly important for cities in order to be free to experiment on the local level. So, for example, we provide an upfront advance payment of 50%. We have designed a number of flexibilities regarding the complementarity between ERDF and ESF thematic priorities. We have a number of flexibility regarding state aid and others. What we also really encourage city to do, and that's something that I'm sure that will be highlighted during the presentation of SPIRE, it's the local partnership. So UIA, it's not a transnational type of mechanism, so we do not support exchanges or let's say networking between cities in different member states. What we do is that we work with one single urban authority authority, with one territory, but also with what we call the kind of local ecosystem for innovation. So we encourage cities to come up as much as possible with a variety of local stakeholders that will help in the implementation of the process. We, of course, put a lot of emphasis also on the monitoring and evaluation of those projects, especially because of their innovative nature. So we want to know to what extent the innovative nature of the project has helped the city to achieve specific results and impact on the local level. And then, as I said, because we really want to make sure that the knowledge which is generated by UI projects will be available to a larger audience, we also have UI expert, and Pietro is one of our main ambassadors in the role of UI expert, in order to accompany the project, in order to provide advice to the project, but more importantly, in order to capture the knowledge which has been generated by the project and to make it, let's say, accessible and available to a wider range of urban practitioners in Europe and beyond. The state of play. Well, we are getting almost to the end of at least of the selective part of the UIA. This is because we have now closed the last call for proposal. UIA has generated a huge interest over the different call for proposal. We have received more than 1,200 applications from basically all member states. And today we have 86 projects that are supported. Of course, these two figures also show you the very competitive nature of UIA, because we have currently a success rate of 10% of projects selected out of the projects submitted. We have currently committed the entire envelope that we had at our disposal of 372 million euro that are currently invested in project. Of course, what is over is the selection part, but otherwise the projects now are on full swing mode, in the sense that many of them are now in the middle of their implementation period, which lasts for 3 years. We have covered all the topic of the urban agenda, including some new topics that have been added along the way, such as security and cultural heritage. We have the first wave of projects that are now getting to an end, the project of the first call. Well, some of them are getting to the end because some others have been, as you can imagine, impacted by the COVID pandemic, and therefore they were granted some kind of temporal extension. And in the meantime, in order to also to bring forward the second objective, which is the knowledge part, we have also recently released a strategy which explains a little bit how we want to capture and share this knowledge from the project and at our level. So this is just to give you a bit of in a nutshell, what is UIA and where we stand so far. The next slide, yeah, actually just to show you that while, as I was saying before, we cover the entire spectrum of the urban topics, the topics that might be, let's say, labeled as green topics, they play a very substantial role within the portfolio of projects we have currently that we are currently supporting. As you can see here in this slide, we have almost 35 projects that are explicitly working on topics that might be labeled as green, from energy efficiency to circular economy, of course, sustainable use of land, but also climate adaptation and air quality. And on top of those, you should also consider quite numerous other projects that have been approved under topics that are probably less green in their denomination, but they still have quite strong environmental components, and these can be found under the urban poverty type of topics, jobs and skills, housing, as well as in digital transition. So this is to say that here today we can say that we are currently investing more than 180 million euro to support the transition toward green and resilient cities. And many of those projects also have this dimension of being post-industrial mid-sized cities, which is basically the profile of the Baia Mare municipality, which is running the project of SPIRE. I would say that this is quite of, let's say, a trend that we can see across all the proposals that we have received. And this is my opinion, also because when we speak about urban innovation, there is a clear attempt by post-industrial cities, which still represent a consistent number of cities in Europe that are trying to turn what the post-industrial status as generated as liability into assets. So there is more and more this attempt from the city to start from what is commonly considered as a liability that has been left by the deindustrialization process as main asset on which the city can build a new strategy, a new vision, and a new way of achieving sustainability. And when I'm speaking about liability or asset, I'm thinking basically about two things. One is human capital, and the other one is the built environment that has been impacted and, let's say, shaped by this deindustrialization process. So as I said in the beginning, those are projects that are implementing on the ground innovative ideas, that are doing so with a large variety of local stakeholders. They are doing so by paying attention to the measurability and to the evaluation, and they are also preparing somehow the ground for the practices and the idea to be transferred in other cities in Europe. So this is why we are convinced that somehow, even before the approval of this new main vision by the European Commission, which is the new Green Deal, the European Green Deal, somehow UAE has been already working in order to create small laboratories at local level to see what does it mean for a city playing and working toward a new Green Deal, an European Green Deal. So we believe that basically, although for the time being are small dots that need to be connected to with a macro vision at EU level, but still, I think that the cities that are working with us on those green topics will be able to provide a very interesting inspiration and findings and recommendation on what does it mean to do it on a local level. And probably more importantly, I would like to stress the fact that we are also convinced that the US city can provide two types of knowledge. The first one is what to do, so what type of policy a city can put in place and implement in order to foster such a transition toward a new Green Deal. But I think it's even more importantly, UI City can provide an incredibly rich wealth of knowledge on how to do it. And this is because the main focus of UIA, it's about implementation, which also differentiate UIA from other programs that are probably a bit more focused on the design phase. Last slide from my side, just to say, because we are conscious and we are convinced about the potential of this knowledge, we are already preparing for 2021 a number of capitalization activities. And here, what I'm giving you is a kind of avant-premiere on what we are thinking internally in the Secretariat. What we would like to organize is basically a number of studies or capitalization activities around, first of all, the circular economy and food production, which might be done together with Urbex, with whom we are already cooperating on another topic, which is the housing one, but probably even more importantly, because we consider it more as a flagship initiative for 2021, we would like to do some work about the concept of fair new Green Deal, where of course the important element is the fairness component. So the idea is to what extent to analyze and to look at to what extent the new Green Deal might be inclusive, to what extent the new Green Deal can avoid generating even more, let's say, inequalities, and to what's the meaning, the real meaning of the no one left behind, which is one of the new strapline, new buzzword that is populating all the EU level communication. And we would like to look at those fairness of the new Green Deal through three, let's say, three axes. The first one, we would like to see what are the impact on the labor markets. So we would like to see what does it mean for the local labor market, this green transition, both in terms of disruption of jobs, but also in terms of creation of new jobs. We would like to look at the affordability of the green solution. So to what extent green solutions are not only for rich people, but to what extent they can really be used and accessible to all levels of our population. And finally, we would like to also to explore the kind of participatory dimension of the new Green Deal. And this would range from, I don't know, the energy local communities toward a more kind of participatory budgeting and other ways of contributing. And the reason why I'm presenting it to you today is that because of course our golden rule is that whenever we do a study, we always build our assumption on the evidence which is coming from the project that are in the implementation process. And I'm sure that the SPIRE project will have its place within this study and this activity over 2021, and we are looking forward to see the SPIRE actors to be involved in this activity in order to share their findings and their recommendation around these 3 levels. I stop here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raffaele, very much for participating and for providing us with this overview of the Urban Innovative Action's contribution to the EU Green Deal, as well as for underlining the key role that small and medium-sized post-industrial cities will play in this transition. And now I'm very happy and pleased to leave the floor to Pietro Lisei, who, as an UIA and Urbact expert, will set the scene for today's discussion, presenting the challenges that are posed to post-industrial cities by the emerging environmental and economic realities. So, Pietro, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pietro. So we're going to talk about the post-industrial city, but basically the post-industrial as a component, an important component of the contemporary city. Please, Pietro, go to the next slide. I'd like to start with this sentence of Yannis Veneris that he was putting in evidence that we all know about post-industrial society, what is the meaning and what is the period that is introducing, but we don't have never heard about post-agricultural society. This is basically there is a continuity and a mix in the transformation of the territories and of the cities. This sentence is very useful to bring us towards a concept that in the transformation of the cities, we have to keep at the same time under control different elements. Go to the next slides, please. And I think that the key pillars that you have to consider.
Pietro, I think we lost your voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Yes. I don't know why I was moving. One of the pillars is the rapid urbanization. The other pillar of the contemporary city is the digital change, and the other point is the global governance. Of course, when we think to the European contemporary cities, rapid urbanization has a meaning. It is completely different in comparison with what is happening in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And another key point that is transversal all over the world to the cities, small and big cities, the digital change. While, again, small, medium, European, non-European cities are immersed into a network of global economy phenomena, and basically the current pandemic was demonstrating this point, but we don't have the instruments to answer to global challenges. I mean, we saw that the answer to the pandemic was that of the member states was fragmented. So we were using pre-industrial institution to respond to a post-industrial or contemporary problem. So we have to invest more on instruments to manage even this kind of global phenomenon where all cities are immersed. The next slide, Pietro. For example, for the contemporary city of Europe, post-industrial means basically shrinking cities. We see that not all cities in Europe are winning. So you see that the red areas are the cities that are growing, while large part of Eastern and South Europe is shrinking. And this is a very important phenomenon we have to face as territorial, urban planner, regional planner, because we are losing part of our civilization. We are losing our polycentric structure because we are not capable to launch new economy in the shrinking part of Europe. But in this case, Baia Mare is a good example, and the project SPIRE could be inspiring for many other cities in Southeastern Europe to relaunch the economy in a post-industrial or contemporary context. The next slide, please. But always talking about the contemporary cities, we can give different definition. We can talk about creative cities, shrinking cities, smart cities, resilient cities. So we have a lot of buzzwords, even as Raffaele previously was remembering. I think that now we have to consider in the contemporary city different components. That is basically the very important one, the post-industrial one, but at the same time, as Bauman said, even the late industrial activities are still in the cities. You can see there are many brownfields in the city that were partially are still working on innovation based on digital technologies is making the economy in the city. In industry 4.0 is bringing back production into the cities, and even all these maker space based economy are even another form of economy that is in the contemporary city. So there are many fragments that at the same time work together, not always harmonized. But the next slides, what is common are the problems of the nowadays cities. So we have all over Europe, but even sometimes even a more difficult situation other cities in the world, soil pollution, air pollution, extreme use of fossil resources, urban mobility that is out of control, a lot of urban poverty, obsolete public administration, so we need to innovate even the public administration, soil consumption, lack of affordable housing. So I don't go towards all the list, but this is the reality of the contemporary city. And some of the problems, again, are typical of the service society, of knowledge society, but many others come from the past, like in the case of Baia Mare. We still have to face problems of the industrial phase of our evolution. Next slide, please. And just a point to contextualize even more, I did research for Slovenian client on brownfields, and was impressed with the results. I don't give you now the number, I give you just the result. Trust these results. If we put together all the surface of European capitals, we just cover 20% of the surface of brownfields we have in Europe. So you can imagine in the post-industrial context, we have an enormous heritage of environmental disaster to face from the industrial era. Go to the next slide. But the post-industrial means for us as urban planners even an incredible experience of designing proper policies for regeneration. Especially in Europe, the contemporary cities needs more regeneration. I mean, as we saw in the previous slides, many cities are shrinking and very few cities are growing. And even the cities that are growing need to regenerate the neighborhoods. Regeneration that is not just requalification, renewal. So using the words of Raffaele, not just working on the built environment, but working a lot on the human capital. It means reconnecting the social ties, the cultural ties, all these soft elements that can make the success of a good policy for urban regeneration. So in these slides, I'm not going to details that the kind of principle that defined the principle for designing a policy change with the political context. And I think that the contemporary urban regeneration policy should look at promoting a climate neutral economy, should work on the digital transition, and should work a lot of innovation in governance, especially within the city, in the public administration of the cities. And we have this occasion now with the next generation EU funds, but even with the next programming period 21-27 to really be creative in designing innovative and effective instruments. The next slides, please, Pietro. Basically, some key points, even in doing that, that in regenerating the post-industrial context, we have to keep together economic regeneration and social exclusion, so balance these two aspects. You have to keep the perspective on area-based approach, and but the most important thing is really the transversal action on participation. The instrument should be not only based on public-private partnerships, but public-private people partnership. The people component is fundamental to give sustainability, but even to identify the real problems to face. Sustainability is something that is lasting on the long period, and it's just happening in cities if it's local rooted. The local rooted of a good policy is just based on the action created co-design and co-implemented with people. Next slide, please. And another important point is even what is coming from the smart cities. There are, again, buzzwords, buzz concepts, but we cannot deny that we are in front of sort of revolution brought by the digital transformation. We saw actually how the internet and the mobile devices were changing our life with the mobile internet, the GIS and the mobile devices together. We're introducing another disruptive element that is the mobile GIS. Well, actually, if the post-industrial city is the cities of services, if we contextualize into the technology, the things that we know as urban planners, the place, how to make a place, please, Pietro, just give a click. We see that if Pietro is giving a click, the place is open a number of domains for new economies to be developed in the contemporary cities. Call it post-industrial or knowledge society or whatever you want, but clearly we have to link what we can do, what we know to manage as planners with technology, and then we have domains of creativity to where develop services and new economies. Go to the next slide, Pietro. Then I introduce a little bit the story of Baia Mare, a city that I like because when I decided to change my life and move to Romania, this was the first city that I started to plan. And the story, I was always fascinated by this story, the story of this town, because if you remember at the beginning of the century, there was a big natural disaster in Europe, all along the river Danube. This is actually after Chernobyl, the second disaster in Europe, and was originated in Baia Mare, in one of the abandoned brownfields. So you can imagine how difficult is the situation of this mining city with a lot of brownfields within the city fabric and completely not recovered. We are talking about pollution of heavy metal that can reach even 5-6 meters under the level of soils, even more, and it's everywhere in water. And without talking about air pollution that can be created even by these pollutants. But starting from this story, go to the next slide, from this big natural disaster, Baia Mare was really capable when Romania in 2006 joined the European Union to be one of the most active cities. And the first strategic plan was designed in 2007. This strategic plan consented Baia Mare to enter the network of the European projects, was a protagonist of different Urbact, Horizon projects, ICT, PCP projects. So they were, especially Doru was one of the protagonists of this story of Baia Mare. But starting from this strategic plan, Baia Mare conceived an idea of development to go beyond the industrial side. And in 2012, the last industry, the Ron Plumb in Baia Mare, was closed and solving an incredible problem with air pollution. We are talking about really, if we go to the health indicators connected to the population of Baia Mare, we really have very, very, very bad values and very bad stories to tell. Go to the next slide, Pietro. And SPIRE is the results of this long pathway that was born in 2007 through the strategic plan, through the different experiences in social innovation, in land use management, done by Baia Mare, thanks to the use of the programs and policies put at disposal from the European Commission, the European Union, depending on the program. And the results was this finally Big Bang, as I like to call it, that is SPIRE. Well, the overall objective of SPIRE is to work on the built environment again, but even introduce soft instruments like the ILEO. I'm not talking about the SPIRE because Sabine and the others are going to go, they are going into the detail. Please, the next slide, Pietro. But I was just to show you the intervention area. So there are some areas that are going to be really requalified through feed remediation technology, innovative technologies. But at the same time, even a hub and a makerspace is going to be realized, because at local level, you need to have the instruments and the governance capabilities to keep together this kind of intervention that, even if it's just 5 million euros one, can be mainstreamed and can be really bring to the final happy end for the cities in 10, 15 years. But we need to have local systems, I mean, local hub, local places, urban center, where actually the people and the institution have a permanent dialogue in order to shape the kind of local policies you need. And another problem, especially for the Romanian cities, next slide, Pietro, is that we still suffer a lot of centralization. While we know that sustainable development is something that we make at local level. So to have sustainable development, we have to reinforce the local level, even from the economical point of view. And for this reason, the SPIRE project is introducing the ILEO. It's a local currency or local token. We are having a lot of problems with the national legislation, so we have to insert this experience at local level and having courage to make it. That is basically creating a local system, so it's empowering, improving the local economy through this local currency that is gained and produced mine through a good environmental behavior. So if I go to work with the bicycle, or if I build my house using the passive architecture, I get a number of ILEO that I can spend in the network of companies and institutions at local level that decide to join this experience of local currency or local token. The leu is the Romanian currency. The ILEO play a sort of game on the name because it's an immaterial local environmental utility. It's a standard. It's an urban standard. It's a service expressed to a local currency that is increasing the power of the local economy, so the cities can do more, even in a context that is still, unfortunately, very centralized, and cities that don't have the power. I go to a conclusion.
Sorry, I would just ask you not to spoil too much, because also Sabina will go in detail on the...
Okay. But this is the point that I like more, as you know, Pietro. And basically, this is a very soft infrastructure. So it's really, the ILEO is to make economy through soft infrastructure. And this is really, let's say, symbol of a post-industrial city. So working a lot with the community is not just in terms of NGOs and people, but even small and medium enterprises, and linking them to the institution, creating a local value chain. I hope it works. It's not an easy experiment, and you can imagine that not all people are in favor, not all level of governance, the vertical governance, are in favor of this experiment. But this is the added value of the UIA program. I always remember that this is a program for experimenting. So, but you can even fail. I hope that we are not going to fail, but basically we have to reduce, I think, ambition on the ILEO. I think that I'm done, Pietro. This was the last slide as far as I remember.
That was.
Thank you. Well. Thank you very much. Thank you. And next time, don't call me last second to prepare the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pietro. That was really a very insightful presentation, rich of content and food for thoughts that we will surely tap on for the discussion afterwards. So now I'm very happy, and it's my pleasure to introduce Luigi Iannitti and Valerio Manelfi, who are from Reset, and they will present us the groundbreaking experience of Soluzioni VerdiTaranto, which is a very insightful and interesting project for nature-based solution remediation and energy production in Taranto. So Luigi and Valerio, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you hear me?
We do. Loud and clear.
Okay. So I will start the presentation. I made let's say, the biological and phytoremediation part. Valerio will talk about Reset and our plant. I want to start with some description of Taranto. Taranto is an industrial city in southern Italy, where industrial activities at major risk of accident have been carried out in the last 50 years, mainly on refining and steel industry. In particular, Taranto hosts the largest steel mill in Europe. Over these years, these 50 years, past the 50 years, there has been a continuous deterioration of environmental quality, especially due to emissions from the steel mill, which was followed by the onset of serious medical diseases. In the recent years, a process of environmentalization of industrial plants and the depollution of the urban area which is adjacent to the industrial plants has begun. Among the work presented today, we will talk about a pilot project, a very small pilot project for soil decontamination through phytoremediation and the attempt of energy enhancement of the biomass used through gasification. This is the project Soluzioni Verdi, Green Solutions, that is part of a larger project to revise the reality of Taranto in the next 10 years. Please, the next. So, as I said, this Soluzioni Verdi project is inside a very big, ambitious project that the city of Taranto has set. And for the transition strategy to make Taranto a resilient city by the next 10 years. The project will involve authorities, organizations, associations, and the citizen, and was presented in the beginning of 2020 to the population. The project has the aim to produce a dynamic relationship between the public and private, recovery of the sense of community, a common goal for a modern and, let's say, resilient city of Taranto. And among the numerous objectives of the Agenda 2030 agenda, the main objective that is focused is sustainable city and communities. With this presentation, in this presentation, we talk about Soluzioni Verdi, that is a very little small part of the bigger ambitious project of Taranto. The next one, please.
So on project goals.
Okay, project goals. I have another order in my... So, the goals of this project are management of the experiment of using poplar crops for the bioremediation in very high multi-contaminated soils, contaminated by polychlorinated biphenyls, PCB, and heavy metals, very high quantity of heavy metals. Another goal of the project is to reuse the biomass coming from the system, from the phytoremediation, to produce renewable energy, and to use the byproduct of the gasification of the biomass, that is a carbon vegetable, called biochar, as a soil improver for the bioremediation itself. So the goal, we can say, is the promotion and development of the final project. The final goal is the promotion and development of national guidelines on the use of the biomass coming from biodeterioration. That is a part of legislation that is no more clear in Italy and I think in Europe. Next slide, please. So the preliminary results of the let's say the biological part of the project. The data showed in the first preliminary test show a overall improvement in soil quality, and not only in terms of decontamination and increase of nutrients, but also in the structure of the microbial community. And you know that the microbial community is the part of the soil that is capable to utilize the contaminants and modify the contaminants. The synergic relationship was another data that was shown from the first steps, that the synergic relation between the aerial part of the poplar and the microorganism in the below ground that are able to increase the soil quality, enriching the soil by these active bacteria that are able to degrade the contaminants, the pollutants, and to process the heavy metals. Poplar trees are able to grow healthy in that soil and to transform the degraded area in the new healthy area for future use. So we can say the specialists, the biological specialists, say that the plant-assisted bioremediation is seen as a strategy that is recommended and as an efficient and good example of nature-based solution. All these results that I presented in this slide were obtained by the studies of the Italian National Research Council that I have used. Next slide, please. Okay. Now I go more deeply in our part, the part that was managed directly by RESET. We installed a little gasification unit in Taranto, nearby the crops, the poplar crops, that is now processing all the biomass coming from the crops, and we can give you the first results. In terms of electric power, the plant achieved the goal, that is the production of 20 kilowatt per hour. We can say that this quantity is of 20 kilowatt per hour is produced using 20 kilograms per hour of poplar, of biomass. In the same time, we produce also the byproduct biochar. The production of biochar is almost 1 kilogram per hour, and this biochar has been already used in some rows of the poplar cultivation. So we can try also, we can check the effect of the use of biochar inside the poplar bioremediation. In addition, we can recover also from the plant and then from the energetic recovery from the biomass, thermal power in the amount of almost 30 kilowatt per hour. The biochar is used, can be used in the poplar crops and in other kind of crops as a soil improver. And we like to underline that the use of biochar, that is almost 70% carbon content, could be seen as a carbon storage project, and therefore can be seen as a system for the reduction of CO2 emissions. We can very easily calculate the CO2 that could be stored into the biochar that is put in the soil. Next step already started is the determination, the analysis of the presence of contaminants coming from crops in the byproducts of the gasification. mainly in syngas and in the biochar itself. We do not expect very high quantity of contaminants, nor PCB and heavy metals. But I think that in the next month, for sure, by the end of this year, we will have the exact evaluation. The University of Rome is making the analysis. Last slide from my side is to underline that this very small project, but very indicative project of Soluzioni Verdi in Taranto is a perfect example of circular economy solution, because we use the plant-assisted bioremediation cleaning with the goal of cleaning very contaminated soils, producing biomass. This biomass will give us energy, thermal and electric energy, and will produce a byproduct that is biochar, the vegetable carbon. The biochar could be used in the soil to enhance the effect of the bioremediation. So nothing is loose in the project, and is a very, very interesting project of circular economy. The biochar will give also CO2 mitigation, because stores in the ground carbon, and we produce renewable electric and thermal energy. I think that we can pass to the next, and I pass to Valerio for the ending part.
Thank you, Luigi. Okay, we'll jump in just for 3 slides for presenting to the audience the solution that Reset has provided the Soluzioni Verdi with. So basically, this is the scheme of our SyngaSmart technology. So it's basically reduced in 4 parts. There is a biomass pre-treatment section where we load the biomass and pre-treat it with some waste heat, which is generated by the plant. Then there is the core of our technology, which is the gasification system itself, and includes all the steps of a proper gasification process, at the end of which we have the biochar production. And the biochar of the Soluzioni Verdi project, we have concentrated all the pollutants, metals, and so forth. After the biochar, we have a stream of raw biosyngas. That's how we call it, because it's originated from biological biomass. And this stream of syngas is cleaned, cooled, dust is removed, and is prepared to be sent to a standard internal combustion engine. Now, I say standard internal combustion engine, but basically there is a very important know-how contribution from Reset, because we modify Otto cycle and diesel cycle engines to run on a very poor fuel, which is syngas from wood, from biomass in general. And when we have this syngas ready, we basically power the engine, and we generate power, and we recover all the thermal power produced inside the engine and the flue exhaust. So we have the cogeneration process. Please move to the next slide, Pietro. Very briefly, Reset is an engineering and manufacturing company which was started in 2015 as a startup. Now we are 60 of us in the company in this moment. We have patented this solution, this containerized solution that you see in the slide, which is called SyngaSmart, and it's made of a range of plants running from 19 to 200 kilowatt of electric power. We also build only heating plants just by replacing the engine with a standard burner and boiler. And this is the core technology. Everything is designed and engineered and manufactured in Italy, in our plant in Rieti. Move to the last slide, please. Oh, that was my last intervention. Thank you very much for your attention. For any further question, just feel free to ask us anything you want. Thank you, Pietro.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Luigi and Valerio. That has been really an interesting case, and showing us how this approach and the early results of your project are. They are most definitely an inspirational experience for everyone. And so now I'm very happy to leave the floor to my colleague at Urba Sofia, Sabina Leopa, who will go in deep and introduce you and guide you through our Urban Innovative Actions project, SPIRE by Mare. Sabina, please, the floor and the screen are yours.
Yes. If you can allow me to share the screen.
Yes,
It's in the options. It's disabled.
Say it again.
If you can, the participant screen sharing has been disabled. If you can just allow sharing. In the meantime, hello everyone, and thanks for being here.
Make host.
I
made you host. I think you should be.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I am going to. So you should be able to see the screen, and I'm going to enter the presentation mode now, and I'm going to welcome you to my short intervention and presentation of the SPIRE project, which is short for Smart Post-Industrial Regenerative Ecosystem. And my name is Sabina Leopa, and I think that it's best at first to start with who's who. I'm here on behalf of Urba Sofia. We are a European company that offers expertise for urban development, urban policy design, and territorial cohesion. And recently, we've been more and more involved into delivering the ambitions of the Commission regarding carbon neutrality, sustainability, nature-based solutions, and recently the Green Deal ambitions. So we have a portfolio of projects, among which SPIRE is probably our most inspiring. But what we do is actually try to provide viable solutions to the cities, because we are urban planners, regarding how to achieve carbon net neutrality and how to achieve their environmental goals and how to basically achieve sustainability even in these difficult times. So, as I said, my name is Sabina Leopa. I'm an urban planner. I'm the deputy director, and I will start now telling you a little story about Baia Mare. Because this is a story about not music, but actually, let's say, dysfunctions, but also hidden potentials and hidden applications that we are trying to draw out right now. Baia Mare is a beautiful city in the north of Romania. It's one of the most beautiful ones because of the diverse landscape, because of the people. But while the center looks like this, it also has a very important mining heritage. And that mining heritage actually translates to gold mining, aurul, lead mining, romplumb, copper mining, cuprom with the tower that is now a staple of the region, and tailing ponds and so on. So because of this pre-1989 heritage that has been actually abandoned and not remediated, not brought to the level of remediation that was necessary, there have been certain events in the area that have prompted us actually, and that have been the fuel for our approach. As Pietro was actually telling you, and I will not repeat so much, in 2000, on the 30th of January, actually a dam broke in Baia Mare. And this is 100,000 cubic meters of cyanide is something that is almost, I mean, it's the second natural disaster to spill into Danube to produce the effects in this region after Chernobyl. So this is definitely something very important. And it was followed just 6 weeks afterwards with a similar event of a more reduced impact, so just 20,000 cubic meters of cyanide in Baia Borșa. So this is a city that was the mining capital of Romania and now is struggling with pollution. And what we did was actually uncover the fact that yes, this is true throughout our sites, throughout the center part of Baia Mare. We have lead concentration. This is just an example beyond the alert and beyond the alert threshold for sensitive uses, which means housing and living in parks, and less sensitive uses, which means commercial and industrial activities. But this is super important because it actually means that there is a level of danger that the people of Baia Mare live with that is possibly a similar level of danger that other inhabitants in other cities live with as well. And the state of play in 2019 was the fact that there has been a plethora of pollutants, of heavy metal pollutants that estimatedly cover almost 630 hectares in the metropolitan area. And this means 100 times what Casa Poporului, which is the biggest structure in Europe, actually covers. It's 100 times the biggest structure in Bucharest, which the biggest destination in Bucharest, the biggest building in Europe. This is a lot of space. It's like each of the inhabitants of the metropolitan area of Baia Mare actually own their own square footage of 27 square meters. That's a studio. That's an IKEA studio, for example, of heavy metal polluted land. So this is a very bad situation. This is a situation that policy, top-down policy, was not able to resolve. And the 30-year-old deadlock on the big sites, because of the fact that if you get the big site, Coprom or Remin or Romplum, which are actually owned by insolvent companies, it means you have to start remediation procedures by law, and remediation is costly. It's very costly, especially hard ex situ remediation. So these are the challenges: ecological and public health consequences, low life expectancy, the challenge of moving towards sustainability and becoming more green in a city that doesn't have a central heating system, low community cohesion. These are all challenges that are exacerbated, and they're common throughout Europe, but they're exacerbated on by the fact that we don't have EU legislation on soil protection yet. And we have a Romanian strategy for brownfield management, but that strategy has not had any advancement since 2013. We have potentially contaminated sites, but no research. So long story short, this is what we were faced with when we actually decided to start from these weaknesses and to search for a way to solve them, to search for a way that can actually turn the situation in Baia Mare on its head. Because it's not sufficient to have incremental improvements. It is also relevant, especially now, to try to be bold, to try to, let's say, go where nobody has gone before. And this is a quote, and I hope you know where it's from. So SPIRE Baia Mare, Smart Post-Industrial Regenerative Ecosystem. This has been a project that was financed through the Urban Innovative Actions, the program that Raffaele presented before for everyone. It was under the Sustainable Land Use and Nature-Based Solutions priority, and it wants for the next 3 years to start a long-term, so this is a start, to start a long-term redevelopment process through participation, through co-design, in order to integrate the polluted brownfields into the productive value chain of the city, to have out of it what Luigi was presenting before, an output, even out of the process, the cascading value chains of getting out material that is usable, of getting out energy that is usable, while at the same time trying to find a creative and less costly way to tackle the huge problem of brownfields in Baia Mare, and to offer a potential scalable and replicable solution at European level. So our consortium is formed by the municipality, by Urba Sofia, by Indecosoft, the University for Agricultural Sciences, the Metropolitan Area, Arias Transylvania, and Green Energy Association. And as I said, it's quite an impressive project because it tackles all the policy domains in which we have identified weaknesses at the national level, and also some challenges at the European level. So this is a project that is basically financed under sustainable land use and nature-based solutions, but it offers an answer, or an integrated answer, to a lot of questions that deal with public health and reduced life expectancy, and the possibility to create new economies at local level. And nature always finds a way. And this is another quote, and I hope you know that it's a quote from Jurassic Park, and it's a great one. And what we're trying to do is actually switch from the hard in situ or ex situ remediation to more soft approaches that are environmentally sustainable, that are creative, and that are actually proven so far. So we have phytoremediation as the use of green plants in order to remove or render harmless the toxic environmental contaminants. And this means using a plethora of plants that are either productive as energy crops and have these advantages, or productive in other uses such as material use for insulation purposes of buildings, for example, such as hemp, which is a tremendous isolator. And these are the sites which we try to test this, because we have received a grant from the Urban Innovative Actions program that allows us to actually demonstrate our approach in different areas of the city that are polluted in different ways, and to see whether our approach of planting, phytoremediation, assessment of heavy metal concentration is something that can be long-term feasible. So phytoremediation in 10, 15, 20 years of all the sites across Baia Mare, maybe 50 years for the most polluted ones, but also to start community regeneration approach. So to try and to spin the situation on its head and to try to promote awareness of the fact that this is a polluted city, but there are actually ways to solve this. And this is a lot working on community involvement, and this is a lot working on co-creation of these sites. And we want to actually involve, and we are involving currently, the inhabitants that are part of, some of them are part of marginalized groups around these peripheral areas in Baia Mare, to co-create the way that the sites are looking and what they actually want from these sites, what they would want from a re-greened, re-natured area in Baia Mare. And this is, I think, it's holding a lot of value in terms of awareness, in terms of shifting the perspective of local administration, and in terms of shifting basically the perspective of all citizens in these post-industrial cities regarding what they can and cannot do at local level, and what they can and cannot benefit from in terms of more sustainable and more qualitative places to live. And our project, it starts from a baseline and desk analysis and scientific part, and it involves citizens. It creates a local action network for co-creation, and then we are involving these citizens, as I said, into the final designs of the pilot sites. We are then going to plant these sites, which amount to approximately 7 hectares. And afterwards, in 2-3 years in which the project is running, the harvest that is going to be conducted in the 2nd and 3rd year on these sites is going to be used in the biomass to energy pilot. So we're going to heat a sports hall of a school nearby. We're trying to offer the sustainability, the energy sustainability to that sports hall. And we're also trying to test together with an international panel and international collaboration with other stakeholders, the possibility to find new purposes in the material value chain. What if we use these bio-based products for insulation? What about if we use them for different kinds of construction in a safe manner to people? Because of course they are bioaccumulators, so there's going to be some concentration of heavy metals there. We are asking all of these hard and very experimental questions. So as Pietro said, we hope it works, but this is actually a really big experiment. And in the end, based on the results of the 7 hectares pilot, we're trying to upscale this at almost 630 hectares. We're trying to ask the question, okay, if we found a way to do this, what does it look if we actually expand this to the economy of scale that is the metropolitan area? What is the impact of actually using phytoremediation for these lands that otherwise would cost trillions to remediate? Here's an opportunity to do this while we benefit from the interim results. So we benefit from the biomass and we benefit from the final output. And we are not that big, not in such a big hurry, because 630 hectares, it's not possible to redevelop as commercial space, for example, but we can have a long-term perspective. And this is the planner's paradise of thinking about the dynamic redevelopment of the metropolitan area for the foreseen horizon of 2050. So our mission is clear. And what we're trying to do right now is to work on the ground, but also to provide all the necessary instruments and the smart instruments to allow this process to happen. Because as the people before me have actually underlined, and I'm in perfect agreement with everybody, this is not just a technical project. The crucial part is breaching the barrier of understanding of people, because sometimes it does feel like you are one person making a decision of using the bus and not taking the car in a sea of persons using the car, in a sea of persons not caring. So one of the things that we're actually trying to drive home is the message that we need to have a behavioral shift, and we need to all jump on board to these kinds of initiatives, and we actually have to individually shift to a more environmentally friendly behavior, to a more concerned behavior regarding the environment, to a more cohesive behavior. So our project actually attains all of this by investing in a dynamic atlas, investing in a mentorship program, investing in startups that come up with ideas of using the biomass. And we are going to support 3 bio-based startups in the end, after a lot of open calls and trainings and mentorship programs. And we're actually going to try to tie everything together with the most innovative part of the project, which is a digital token system that wants to shift behavior. And Pietro has told you a little bit about this, so I will not go again on what he said, but I think it's very important to say that this is one of the key elements of the project, beyond working on site and beyond working on hard remediation and analysis and co-creation. This is the glue. We need a digital glue, especially now. So I think that our approach has been contextualized a lot in the COVID pandemic. And I think that the ambition of actually setting up an alternative value cycle at local level helps put a price on environmental behavior. Maybe I don't know the impact of taking my bike. Maybe I don't know the impact of planting the space around my home, or participating in a co-creation event, or helping others. But if you put a price on this, if you have an immaterial local environmental unit that actually allows you to buy with it public transportation, to buy with it entrance to a co-creation lab, maybe to buy with it, initially our ambition was sky high, maybe to buy with it the payment of local taxes, then this is a price you can put on this behavior. And this is one of the key vessels of shifting behaviors in what concerns green action. And this is something that we're trying with ILO in Baia Mare. It's been unheard of in this part of Europe. So we're actually struggling to find our footing and struggling to even explain the concept sometimes. And I'm going to be very honest with you. This is hard, but we're very optimistic. We want to use it to boost green entrepreneurship, and we want to use it as a main reward system for these startups, for the people that have initiative, for the people that want to become involved. And as of such, we want to create a quadruple helix model in which the local administration, the businesses, the NGOs, and every citizen alike can join and can actually use the system for the specific purpose of becoming involved in the fit remediation and the shift towards environmental sustainability in Baia Mare. So we see it as a local system. Again, this is something that Pietro showed you as well, but it actually builds doesn't conduct just to the implementation of the project, but it actually builds trust between the local administration and the citizens, and I think in businesses. And I think that this is one of the key hardships of implementing projects: how to build trust, how to bind the community, how to involve the community, how to shift the narrative between the local administration does this and I can react, to we have to work together for a mutual goal. And this is replicable to a lot of scopes, but we're using it specifically for eco-entrepreneurship and sustainability in SPIRE project. But this is the capacity to rescale and the capacity to actually replicate the solution. So our ambition is quite high, as I said. We want to experiment an approach not tested before at European level. If this is a success, we have a viable option for a lot of challenges at European level, basically ubiquitous challenges, especially for small and medium-sized cities, which do not benefit from so much foreign direct investment and attention such as the capital. So this is a very big, let's say, entry point to a program for small and medium-sized cities. We also, if it's a success, we can also scale up, and this means new economies. Think about how much energy can be generated from 630 hectares just at the level of the metropolitan area of Baia Mare. And we're also opening a door in sustainable land use. So adaptive thinking to 2050, which is again something that doesn't happen very often in the region. Because legislation is far behind on brownfields, because legislation is very, very far behind on cryptocurrency and tokens. We also have the opportunity right now and the very big challenge to inform national and European policy. So this is why we were financed by UIA, and this is, I think, why urban innovative actions exist, to offer this kind of a leapfrogging ahead from the incremental improvement that usually happens in other projects financed from structural funding, for example. But we also have challenges, and we would like to discuss them, especially in the panel after the presentation. And last but not least, I think that these challenges are actually something that is of massive consequence, especially in these strange times. So the participative approach, how to move to digital and ensure that the people that are inside the local communities that are disadvantaged actually have a chance to tell their say. Leadership is very important. It's a beacon in this time, monitoring, evaluation, measurement as well. We have to be able to demonstrate results, communication, such as what we're doing right now, and scaling up, because this will not be without hurdles, regardless of whether we're talking about a metropolitan area or a nation or Europe. So I'm going to stop here because I think that I'm a little bit over my time, and I'm going to thank you for your attention, and I hope you've been inspired. And I'm going to get the microphone back to Pietro, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sabina. And did you make me host back already? Yes, I see. So thank you. Yeah, I think I am host again. So thank you very much. That was, of course, an inspiring presentation, but I'm partial on this, so I will not comment on it. But I'm very happy and I'm pleased to have here Baia Nazia, the project manager from Utropian, to share her reactions and function as a trigger for the discussion and the debate that will follow. So we're really happy to hear what are your impressions, reactions, and thoughts after this round of presentation. Baia, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think the projects are very promising, and I am also very happy that we have the UIA actions. I think it really gives inspiration and creates a lot of room to experiment and really handle the hot topics like brownfields. I would like to have a reflection from Raffaele on impact, because we have been hearing from Pietro Elise also that if a project is really good, that people take over the lead, that after the project is finished, it can go on. And since you have now 6 years of UIA action, I would like to know, how do you measure or how do you identify that a project is impactful, or do you have any success stories? Because that was something which was mentioned a lot by the SPIRE project. They want to be successful, but what is success?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for the difficult question. Well, basically, just to say that, of course, from the very beginning, we had a quite, let's say, flexible approach, because differently from other programs, we are not imposing to the cities that are working with us any type of predefined indicators, either for result or for impacts. And basically, the main reasoning behind this is because we believe that the pre-existing indicators, and we all know there are millions of indicators out there, some of them might be a bit too kind of rigid in order to capture what can be done and achieved on the ground through an innovative process. So this is just to say that for the time being, this free and let's say flexible approach has put us in a kind of difficult situation, because now we ended up with a kind of a variety of indicators on the ground, which makes us very difficult to kind of aggregate this indicator at that level. And on top of it, we also had to at one point do some internal work in order to better define what we call the intervention logic of a UR project, because there was also some confusion between the results and impact. So now what we consider on our side, the results is what can be achieved as a direct consequence of the project implementation, whereas impact are, let's say, changes that will be, let's say, coming up in a given territory, but might also be influenced by external factors. So this is just the first kind of etymological, let's say, type of exercise that we had to do with the project. Now, what we are saying that basically, of course, if we look purely to the kind of quantitative type of results, when looking at the Coal 1 project, we can already see that there are a number of concrete results that have been achieved on the ground, from the jobs that have been created by the project under jobs and skills, as well as a number of, let's say, if you take, for example, we had a project in Barcelona, which was about testing minimum income type of schemes. Here we can see already from a more qualitative type of analysis how the 1,000 households that have been concerned, they can declare that they feel, let's say, self-empowered, and they feel better regarding their current situation. So I think there are a number of results that are happening on the ground, but there are two issues that are probably even more important, but they are less easy to grasp and to see. One is, to what extent the results that we are seeing on the ground depend on the innovative nature of the activities that we have been, that cities have been delivering on the ground. And here, for example, we know that some projects are embedding those questions within their monitoring and evaluation type of approach. If we would have done this type of intervention through a traditional type of approach, would we have had the same type of result? And this is sometimes a very difficult question to answer, but we know that there are some projects that are looking at this process. And probably the second result, it's more about, let's say, the kind of local knowledge, local learning, which is being generated by the project. And I would probably insist a bit more on the partnership dynamic, because what we are creating is, in many cases, a variable geometry of partnership for implementation. We have coined this new word, which is the co-implementation. There was a lot of literature about the co-design of policies, but now we are, I guess, pushing the boundaries a little bit more, the co-implementation part. And what we see is that in many cases, well, first of all, cities are more and more involving what we call the unusual suspects. So beyond the traditional universities or chamber of commerce, which are, of course, very much needed, we see more and more projects that are trying to work with different type of actors. And we believe that this is already some kind of result locally. But even more importantly, we are seeing really this variable geometry in terms of management. We have a number of projects where the city has not the biggest share of the budget, whereas there are project partners that play a key role in the implementation. And of course, here, this dynamic is totally changing the traditional relationship between the cities considered as the public authority and the other organizations that are normally considered as a service provider. Here we are blurring a little bit these boundaries. And I think that we are seeing in some context, the cities now behaving and acting more as ecosystem managers. So they are not the main, let's say, actors just pushing and keeping the money on their side, which is the kind of main power leverage. But we see more and more cities that are kind of adapting their way of functioning to this new context. So I think this is probably a very much intangible, but also very much interesting and important result that we are seeing at local level, which I would probably more classify or categorize as a capacity building type of result that we are achieving locally.
Thank you very much, Raffaele. That gives me kind of like the keyword for the next question to both projects, the Italian project and the Romanian project. If I remember right, Sabina presented or mentioned the partners in Baia Mare. I don't recall there was an NGO or a someone representing regular people besides business, university, and so on. And in the Italian case, I I don't know what the partnership really looks like, but it feels also like it's a very technological solution or project. I would like to know, how would you like to ensure that you have sustainable impact in your city? Whom do you involve? Who are the 250 young people or the 3,000 citizens? What kind of people are you looking for, and how do you involve them? Of course, in the Baia Mare project, we heard about there will be a currency where they can gain value out of the project. But who are those? How do you embed them or involve them? And how are they entitled to the project results to continue after those 3 years? Maybe first Italy and then Baia Mare.
Luigi, please.
From Italy, the lead project the leader of the project in our case is the Italian Research Council, and their director depends directly from the Ministry of Environment. So it's very easy to bring the process of this pilot plant inside a very wide project that will start with the new funds that Italy and the rest of the European community will have in the very, very near future. They are working to specify the rules for start this important project in the city of Taranto, but other projects are going on in other contaminated sites inside Italy.
Mm-hmm. Valerio, would you like to add something, or?
So
I see more the multiplication in other places than having too much contact or collaboration with the citizens. Is that a good summary, or did I misunderstand?
We are at the very initial stage of the project in Taranto. We are giving, for now, let's say, proof of concept, measuring the impact and so forth. Of course, hopefully, this will be replicated on a larger scale, not only in Taranto, but also in other brownfields that we have in large amounts in Italy.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because as an architect, I'm also working sometimes in areas which are problematic, and the latent history or the feeling about the place is not so easy to change, because the perception is this is a health risk, this is brownfield, this was industrial area, this doesn't belong to us, this is not ours, so we don't also involve ourselves, we don't bring ideas, we don't do anything there, we don't send our kids to play there. So I feel like the psychological part of the whole cleaning process is very heavy. That was the reason why I was asking. But Sabina, you wanted to say something, sorry.
Yeah, sure, and thank you for the question. I think it's a very good question, because it actually directs to something that I didn't have actually time to explain, because it's quite complex. So the architecture of an UIA project, an urban innovative actions project such as ours, is an architecture in which the lead partner is the municipality, in our case Baia Mare, and we have a reduced series of delivery partners. So the delivery partners are the partners that are offering a solution. For us, it is the expertise in planning and developing the Baia Mare master plan and contributing to baseline analysis and so on, and co-development of solutions. For Indecosoft, for example, it's the platform the IT platform for the ILO and the dynamic GIS-Atlas and so on. So everybody comes to the table to give something to the project and to give something to the people. But beyond that, the involvement of stakeholders and the involvement of citizens is happening throughout the project, but with different kinds of scopes and different kinds of context. So in the beginning of the project, what we did was go there and really have this in-focus structured interviews in schools, in the local community and so on. We ran a questionnaire and we ran a set of presentations, and we tried to get the perception of the people about the city. But this is an iterative process. So right now we're working on developing and implementing, and of course we are working on means we cannot wait for this situation to get clarified and to actually try to make this happen because of this very weird COVID situation. Our initial plan was to have an iterative workshop development in which we work with the citizens. For each of the sites, we have 3 workshops. And now we're rethinking the workshops to mean 3 online, offline presentation, co-design kinds of mix and match events that are combining everything in a very safe manner for the citizens, in which we go and discuss what they don't like about the sites, how they would like them to look, what they would like them to contain, and we discuss scenarios and we discuss with them what the final projects would look like. So this is a co-design that is specifically site-based. Beyond that, we're using, and we are going to use actually, because congregations in closed spaces are not very possible right now in Romania, but we're going to use the SPIRE hub to actually hold presentations and to actually use it as an articulation point, an info point in which project meets people. And the events that are going to be there, the screenings, the presentations, this all will feed into the creating a mutual understanding, because I think that's the baseline. Phytoremediation is such a cryptic word. I can't go and say we are going to phytoremediate this concentration of heavy metal and discuss this with the people in the community. This needs to happen slowly. It's the slow food of, or the slow city approach to actually exacting systemic change. And then what we're trying to do beyond this co-creation on the sites is the co-creation on the city plan. So the Baia Mare 2050 metropolitan plan, we draw inspiration from, I don't know, Nantes, who actually involved 80,000 people in their plan. We draw inspiration from a lot of cities that did massive involvement events and massive involvement campaigns to try and give the people the floor. But before that, we actually need to create a common understanding. And this is where we have blocked a little bit because of this this COVID situation. So bear with us, we have the plan. We just need to find the creative ways to do it.
I think
I want to add
Pietro,
something to this. Actually, we have
Doreen, you are talking, right? Because you are off,
yes.
We can't see you, so that's
okay.
okay. After you, maybe Pietro.
Yes. What we tried right from the beginning was the link to each site, both a school using children, and also we have a sort of a district city halls. So we choose especially some deprived neighborhoods. So the people are very interested to change the image of the sites. And because of all of these very polluted sites are in the middle of the districts, they will be very, very much involved. We have seen a little bit their intention in November last year when Pietro Verga was in Baia Mare, and we have a meeting with all the interesting persons. What we have now to see and using children to help us is how we can go over the pandemic and reach the people, actually.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Pietro wanted to say something. Thank you, Pietro.
Yes, I wanted to catch up a bit from some questions that arose in the chat box, and I wanted to bring them together to raise another common question to all the projects. Now, I also see that we're kind of running out of time, so that could possibly be one of the last rounds of comments to all of the speakers. But what came out in the chat box are questions related to the ownership of the sites, to the reproducibility of the approach. So that makes me to think about how these approaches, these land use approaches, this circular economy and nature-based solutions approaches can actually contribute to the local economic development of other small and medium-sized cities across Europe. So I would like to ask a brief comment to all the panelists on how they can see these two approaches from Baia Mare and Taranto could be reproduced and upscaled in other cities, and what inspiration can we take from here. So I would start probably from Pietro Lisei, and then from the project, and if also Raffaele wants to chip in, of course, please, after Pietro.
This is a very difficult question, Pietro, because we are at the beginning of the real experimentation of nature-based solution in Europe. As you know, we are involved in another Horizon 2020 project, Progetti. That is really, I mean, there is even this strategy that we have to make in Europe a competitive economy out of nature-based solution. this is difficult, and this is changing city by cities. Where are the opportunity? If I look to the case of specific case of Baia Mare, there is a lot of land that can be recovered in the city center. So then
It
actually,
has to be.
that is
Pietro.
going to be. We are going to recover that, and let's see if it is going to work. I want to be very realistic. It's a very difficult technology, very great problems. I mean, if you have heavy metal till 2 or 3 meters, I don't know. It's not, as Sabina said very well. I mean, this is a slow city approach. I mean, you need time, but then actually you can reuse this land for services, for amenities, for facilities, for social housing. I don't know. You have many opportunities. Okay, and this is where you have brownfields. But then actually you have now going beyond of Baia Mare, nature-based solution change the way you live. I make another example of the other project I was following as a UI expert, the one of Pozzuoli. This was based on urban agriculture. Then urban agriculture there was a driver for creating a local chain of values, a local economy based on food. And this is another opportunity connected to nature-based solutions, so recovering land and working with the nature. Another opportunity is connected to health. I mean, if we have more green spaces coordinated within the city fabric, then we have even the opportunity to improve the climate change parameters, not just air pollution, but many other parameters that are connected to production of CO2. And this is even, again, nature-based solution can improve. Another critical aspect of nature-based solution are the ecosystem services. And even here, in many cities in Europe, we have the green network that has to be reused in a creative way. And now it's in many cases abandoned. And this is a free room for ecosystem services. Just to start to invest in that step by step. It's not something for today.
I think experimenting is very good start for this. Raffaele, would you like to say something on top of this?
Well, just probably on the concept of transferability, because as you know, this is one of the concept, one of the criteria on which the project have been approved. And of course, now it's a matter on how we make this transferability possible. Well, first of all, we want to leave the project, first of all, the time for experimentation, not to overwhelm them with a new responsibility for transferability. But of course, we insist on the fact that recalling every and each project that they are not working only for themselves, but they are also working in order to share and inspire other cities. So this is something that, of course, we want to take care of. But then we identify two levels. One is the inspiration, the other one is the transfer as such. On the inspiration side, this is what I've been presenting so far. This is the work that Pietro and other experts are doing with us in order to capture this knowledge and share it. But now we are moving also to the next step, which is the transferability as such. And we are currently designing a pilot activity with Urbact, which will be for time being open only to the UI cities that are from Call 1. So basically, Urbact is offering the possibility to set up a transfer network, which is one of the typologies of network that they have, only for the UI city as the kind of lighthouse or good practice cities, which would then include 3 or 4 followers from other cities. And here, of course, all the discussion of, but what can be really transferred, to what extent a UI project can be replicated elsewhere, it's all going on. And I think that here there is this 3-step methodology that Urbact is proposing to their transfer network, which is the understand, adapt, and reuse, which I think it's very, very much meaningful in this reflection, because first of all, we have to make sure that other cities are understanding the project in Baia Mare, but they are also understanding the local constraints, the local specificity, in order for them to then start adapting to local context. I call it the digestion phase, where you start digesting what you have learned from Baia Mare, from other projects, and then when you realize what can you really reuse on local level. So I think that we are still confident on the possibility of having some transferability of some UI projects, but keeping in mind this 3-step approach, and keeping in mind that, of course, it won't be a copy and paste, because this is just impossible.
Thank you, Raffaele. Maybe also from Luigi and Sabina want to briefly comment on this, and Daru, and then
We wrap up.
yes.
Yeah, from our side, we are in the very first stage of the project, but as I said, we are inside a good, a very important network with the Italian Research Council, with the university, with the support of the environmental ministry. So for Taranto, we hope we can continue the project in a very in the good manner inside the project for Taranto resilient city 2030.
And thank you, Luigi. Fingers crossed. And Sabina?
Yeah, well, for
30 seconds.
30 seconds, what we try to look at for upscaling right now, and what we have right now for upscaling is we looked at we try to support other cities, and that is knowledge transfer on how to read the situation. And this is our work regarding the indicators and key performance indicators that we looked at. And this is a work that is digested of every really cutting edge research at European level, and not only. So we considered SDGs, we considered the work carried out in the 14 flagship projects of nature-based solutions funded by Horizon 2020. So we have this digest that is very useful as an operational tool of how to read the situation, how to establish a baseline. And then what we do right now, we work at a guide for the process of co-design on these sites. And there is a tremendously good team working on really translating all this cryptic information to how to involve citizens, how to offer them the options to work with phytoremediation how to insert phytoremediation in landscape design in cities. And this is, I think it's something that has not been done before at European level. So these are off the top of my head, the first results that are happening right now, beyond having a methodology for upscaling the metropolitan area, transferring to national level, because if we have breaking successes in terms of brownfield remediation by phytoremediation, then this is going to impact all the cities at national level, because this is concerning legislation. This is concerning the possibility to get in the property of the local administration a brownfield that is right now stuck in the property of an insolvent company like Romplumb or so on, and to start this feasible phytoremediation. And this is something, again, it's with a huge impact at local level, at national level, but also if we're trying to bring these questions to the European table and have some success in transferring our methodology for the brownfields, for the co-creation, and for the ILO, so the token system, the value system, we are actually responding to the Green Deal priority of shifting citizen behavior. So I think that this is a good start on all of these levels to contribute to discussion at multiple levels. So we're optimistic. We're very wary because this is hugely experimental, but we're super optimistic and excited, I think.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much, Sabina. This has been a really interesting and dense webinar full of food for thought, perspectives.
Pietro, can I add only one small thing?
15 seconds for
what
it.
What I find very interesting now and very challenging for us is to bring innovation to cities, because the regulation, actually the fiscal code and everything is so very blocking innovative initiative for a city. So maybe we can give an example of how can go around such obstacles.
Yes, good. Thank you very much, Dar. So what I was saying is that we've seen a lot of emerging trends, as well as a rich number of experimentations, promising expectation that could fit in the future for the regeneration of our post-industrial medium-sized cities. So I would like to conclude this webinar by thanking all of the speakers that joined us today, starting from Raffaele Barbato from the Urban Innovative Actions, Pietro Elisei as a UIA and URBACT expert, Luigi Iannetti and Valerio Manelfi from Reset, Sabina Leopa from Urba Sofia, and last but not least, Banu Nazia for her inspiring discussions and questions at the end of the panel discussion session, as well as Dorin Mikaus from the municipality of Baia Mare for his contributions and insights. So I'm very happy to thank you all for having had you today. I just wanted to show you and remind you and invite you to join us for the next webinars we are organizing. The next one will be on the 3rd of November, and it will be about rethinking participation and co-creation in times of social distancing. And then in 2 weeks' time, there will be building new green digital economy blockchain for future climate neutral cities. And then we're going to explore circular ecosystem for sustainable energy efficient cities, new frontiers for biomass upcycling. And finally, we are going to explore the fields of reclaiming polluted brownfields through phytoremediation. There's going to be a more technical webinar. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all very soon. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Pietro.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you to all the speakers.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.